No problem.
Or the Virginia dad, rather. She.
I now recognize Mr. Schneider from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the witnesses for being here today. And Mr. Barnes, I want to pick up on your Singapore example since you brought it up. From a business standpoint, the three businesses you mentioned, Singapore business, zero tax, a Dutch business, zero tax, but the U.S. business in Singapore, 10.5% tax. What's the strategic business impact of that disparity?
Well, because of the U.S. rules, because of GILTI and our foreign tax credit and our Subpart F rules, you're always going to be taxed in the U.S. So I think the issue that comes up goes all the way back to the base erosion profit shifting. If the U.S. company has a choice between high-taxed India, lower-taxed Singapore, they are inclined to go to Singapore, all other things being equal. Now, rarely is everything else equal, but let's assume everything else is equal, because the lower taxes in Singapore will help you blend down the high taxes in India.
Got it. Let me turn to Mr. Scheiser for a second, because I know we've all shared the concerns about sovereignty. What's the population of the Cayman Islands?
I do not know.
I'll tell you, it's 69,000. How many companies, corporations are registered in the Cayman Islands?
Many companies.
116,000, more than the people in the Cayman Islands. Why do you think that is?
Low tax.
No tax, right? Zero, correct?
There are some costs, but yes.
The tax is zero. What is the implications for U.S. sovereignty with Cayman Islands zero tax?
I think the answer to that question depends on how the U.S. approaches income earned in the Cayman
I think
Islands.
it's zero. It's up to us to make our decisions, and we make choices on how we tax those companies. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. What is the impact on U.S. revenues for those hundreds of thousands or 100,000 companies registering in the Cayman Islands?
Again, it depends.
It does?
Yes. If we wanted to tax it, we tax it. But if your point is it's an effort to try to reduce the U.S. tax base, that's true.
It does. In fact, that's BEPS. Mr. Barnes, isn't that the definition of BEPS?
It is. I would always say, though, you have to look at what the substance is in the Caymans. Is there substance or is there no substance?
That's a fair point. But isn't the goal of what we're doing here, talking about changing the tax regime, trying to eliminate those tax havens that get companies to register in the countries where they're actually doing business?
I'm sorry, you asked
Mr.
me,
Barnes.
Mr.
Mr.
Barnes.
Barnes.
Sorry.
I think the key of what we're trying to do here is to take tax out of the equation as much as possible. We can't eliminate it completely, but let's get to business fundamentals. Where are your customers? Where are your talented workforce? Where's your economic inputs?
So if there's a level playing field, all things being equal, whether you want to say it in Latin or English, is it, in your opinion, do you think it's to the advantage of the United States because of our court systems, because of our universities, because of our workforce, of all of those things, in a level playing field, would companies be inclined to at least look at setting up shop here in the United States?
They would. I think you have two things. You have a reduced incentive to move out of the U.S., and you have an improved incentive to move back to the U.S. or to expand in the U.S. instead of expand elsewhere.
And if we do nothing and the rest of the world moves forward, do we lose, to some degree, the incentive for those companies that are moving profits from previously tax haven in countries to other countries? Are they likely to not come to the United States as much as they would go to the other G7 countries?
I think those companies would look at the complexity of complying with the U.S. rules and the Pillar 2 rules around the world and be daunted.
On the other hand, if the United States goes to the table, works to influence, as others have said, we should be at the table influencing the United States. I think it was Mr. Michael, you said this. We should be exercising the power of our influence. And Mr. Barnes, you said the rest of the world listens to the United States. Aren't we better served by being at the table and helping set the course of future tax structures in the world?
That's certainly my view, yes.
Okay. With that, I yield back.